Where does change management belong within an organization? Should it be a standalone function? Should it only be led by external, maybe change management consultants, called upon only when needed? I've spent years working alongside Fortune 100 executives, enabling them to move and succeed when going through change and growth initiatives. And what I want to share in this video is some secrets that I've learned on where change management should be housed within an organization. You ready to hear them? Let's get it. Where to place change management within an organization can be a bit confusing. Well, in this video, I'm going to be breaking down what change management entails, as well as the pros and cons of structuring in a centralized versus a decentralized way. And then I'm also going to be sharing one aspect that's so critical regardless of where you choose to house your change management function. So what is change management? Well, in all of my experience, not only leading change within organizations, but also leading a multi-million-dollar consultancy, supporting Fortune 500 organizations all around the world through their change endeavors, I have found that change management is really about the blocking and tackling of change. Those that you put into this function, you really should consider the stewards of change. They're the ones that are defining what success looks like. Those success metrics and the things that need to get measured to ensure that the change is sufficient. They're also defining the very clear roles and responsibilities across the organization. Who needs to be responsible for what as it relates to making the change happen? They more often than not also define the systems required to enable the change, whether that be new software platforms or some new system that needs to get integrated into the organization in order to enable the success of the change initiative. The other key role that change management, that function plays, is really helping to create and align the communication strategy behind the change. Now, where this function lies, the people who carry a role of change management leader or manager, it really depends. It can either be a centralized function or team within an organization, or it can be decentralized with individuals from team to team carrying responsibility of change management. And again, it really is up to you. But what I want to do is go through both of those buckets and talk through the pros and cons as you consider where to house your change management function within your business. The first potential bucket where change management, that role or function, can be housed in an organization is what I term centralized, meaning there's a standalone team that has change management leaders or practitioners in that team. And that team is led by some type of manager. And this team is responsible for all the change efforts, all the change endeavors that are happening across the organization. Like I said, I've done a lot of work with Fortune 500 companies all over the world, one of which is a multi-billion-dollar pharmaceutical company. And I actually worked with an internal change management organization. Now, this was a team that was comprised of a senior leader, a few other middle management leaders, and then other individuals. And they are responsible for delivering the change throughout the organization, defining the success metrics, explaining to leadership the risks, the barriers, the help that's needed, as well as cultivating and aligning the communication strategy around the organization. As far as pros related to having your change management function really led internally and centralized under one team, is that it's very easy to then scale your change initiatives. When you have one group that's leading all the change across an organization, it's going to be very easy to cross-fertilize learnings and for that team to be very well in tuned with how each initiative has been going and tracking that and its progress. And they can work very quickly together to understand when there needs to be help, support needed for one change initiative or another. Now, the other big pro is that things can become standardized. So a certain process or system or way of implementing change that works well across one facet of the organization can then become reapplied across other organizations. So when you have a lot of complexity and you have a lot of change that you need to deliver into an organization or throughout an entire enterprise, it can be really helpful to have a centralized team that's laser focused on delivering that change across all the complexity from team to team, organization to organization. Now, the watch out for this is that you don't necessarily have change management expertise housed within each individual team or organization, right? It's all in one function labeled change management. And so it can become challenging to really laser focus on a team or an organization that might be struggling through the change journey. Because of course, the bandwidth for this team needs to go across the entire enterprise, and they're not necessarily focused on one specific team. And so that's just one of the watchouts to consider as you think about centralizing your change management function or your change management resources. Now, the next way that you can choose to implement change management, that role or that function in an organization, is what I call decentralized. Now, that means from team to team or organization to organization, you have individuals that have change management responsibilities as a part of their work plan. It's not what they're 100% focused on, but they've been charged with leading change management efforts for some aspect of their team or their organization. Now, the pros of this is that for a given change initiative in that organization, that individual who has a part of their action plan focused on the change management can really key in and laser focus on ensuring that team or the organization has all the support that they need, that the risks are clearly being communicated, and they can be really well in tune with that team or that organization because that's where they live, that's where they sit in the overall enterprise. So this is actually one of the pros. Depending on the scale of the change, this can really enable your change to be really efficient and effective because the person responsible for defining success, relaying risks, communicating progress, and supporting the team sits with the team with no other external responsibilities. And so that can be really effective when the scale is quite small and maybe really siloed to that team or organization. Now, the watch out when you've decentralized your change management role or function is that it's not as effective to leverage learnings across other functions or teams, and it's very difficult to drive scale because you've got team by team individuals taking part in change management, but laser focused for that team. And so they're going to make pivots and changes and really fine tune specifically related to that team's needs. And so it's going to be very difficult to try to scale that and reapply it because everyone is decentralized, laser focused on supporting their specific team or organization. By the way, if you're getting value out of this, or if this is really piquing your interest, I'd love for you to comment below. Maybe comment with how change management is structured in your own work or in your own company. Is it more centralized, where you have a change management organization, or do you see things a bit more decentralized? Would love for you to comment below and let us know. All right, let's get back into it. So regardless of whether or not you choose to have your change management organization centralized across one team or decentralized with change management roles being shared across, from team to team, organization to organization, what's so important and what you must not forget is having shared accountability across the entire enterprise, whether organizations are directly or indirectly impacted by the change. What this does is create the right buy-in and the right momentum for the success of your change. I've witnessed friction points or tension points that happens when you have a centralized change management function trying to implement change into a given organization, and the stakeholders or the leader of that organization is not being held accountable for the success of that change. So they're really going to be working to drive the change forward. With no accountability from the leadership of this team, it's going to create friction. It's going to slow things down because there's no buy-in. There's no leverage for this organization to help move that change forward within a team. So whether or not your management efforts are centralized or decentralized, ensure you have accountability for the senior leaders, the key stakeholders across the entire enterprise. And what that looks like is that their work plan, their deliverables, what they're incentivized by, is directly tied into the success of that change initiative. And actually, that's something that you can lean on your change management experts, your practitioners, or those who carry that role to actually define for you. Here's what success looks like. Make sure that's on their work plan, that's a part of their deliverables. So if it fails, not only will the change management team be held accountable, but so will the leader of that organization. Ensure that you have accountability across all stakeholders, across the entire enterprise, in order to ensure the the success of your change initiative. Now, of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that there are external consultants that you can engage in to help you through the change initiative. Now, if you do choose to do that, again, don't forget the importance of having that accountability. Yes, the external experts are going to come in, integrate throughout the organization, and hopefully work with those teams that are both directly and indirectly impacted by the change. But regardless of if that ownership is falling on the external experts, internally, you must have accountability shared across the entire enterprise. All right, so if you dug that information, that content, I got something else for you for free. My company, Change Enthusiasm Global, partnered with a leading research institute, CGK, to study change and emotion in the workplace. And it's all around what employees are likely thinking, but not telling you as it relates to change initiatives and change endeavors. And I want to give that knowledge to you. All you got to do is click the link below, and I'm going to send you a copy of our white paper of this latest research telling you about what employees are feeling and thinking when going through major change initiatives. I want to make sure you have the research, the data, and the insights to be successful in fueling growth through change. Growth for yourself, as well as growth for your business. I'm Cassandra Worthy. And until we meet again, keep growing and keep rocking.